A true story that took place in Everglades National Park, Florida, in 23. A pregnant bobcat narrowly escaped the jaws of an American alligator thanks to the bravery and quick thinking of the wildlife rescue team. Join us as we recreate this heartwarming and heroic tale. The sun hung low in the late afternoon sky, casting a golden glow over the sprawling wetlands of Everglades National Park. A warm breeze carried the scent of cypress trees and brackish water, weaving through the endless sawgrass marshes. This was a land of raw beauty and silent danger, where survival hinged on instinct and the delicate balance of predator and prey. In the heart of this wild landscape, a lone bobcat moved with quiet precision. The sleek bobcat, whom researchers had nicknamed Luna, was a survivor. But now, survival had become more than just about herself. She was carrying life inside her. Her once effortless movements had become heavier, her steps slower, yet each one more deliberate. Pregnancy had changed her. Her body, now fuller, bore the weight of her growing litter, making every hunt more exhausting. But it wasn't just her body that had changed, her instincts had too. Luna had always been cautious, but now her awareness was sharper than ever. She wasn't just hunting to feed herself anymore. She was hunting for them. As she stalked through the tall grass, she could feel the weight of every decision pressing down on her. She had to be careful. One mistake could cost more than just her life. Luna had been hunting all day, but luck had not been on her side. The fish had stayed deep beneath the water's surface, and the marsh rabbits had been unusually scarce. Hunger gnawed at her belly, but she remained patient. She had survived in the Everglades long enough to know that desperation led to mistakes. And mistakes in this land could be fatal, but she wasn't the only predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Unbeknownst to Luna, she had already entered the alligator's kill zone, and the beast had been watching her, waiting. Half submerged in the still, murky water, an American alligator lay motionless, nearly 12 feet long and weighing over 500 pounds. This reptilian giant was the undisputed apex predator of the Everglades. For millions of years, its kind had ruled these waters, evolving into the ultimate ambush predator. Unlike Luna, who relied on agility and stealth, the alligator was built for patience and brute force. It didn't chase its prey, it waited. The bobcat had unknowingly entered the hunting ground of a creature that had survived since the age of the dinosaurs. The alligator's diet was as varied as its hunting style. It consumed fish, birds, deer, and even other alligators. Anything that came too close to the water's edge was fair game. In rare cases, it even attacked humans and their pets. One such attack had occurred not far from this very marsh. On June 14, 2016, at Disney's Grand Floridian Resort, a 2-year-old boy named Lane Graves was snatched by an alligator while wading in shallow water, despite his father's desperate attempts to save him. The child was pulled beneath the surface, disappearing in seconds. When authorities later found the alligator, it had to be euthanized to recover the boy's remains. The case sent shockwaves through Florida, serving as a grim reminder that these ancient predators had no fear of humans. Unlike other predators, an alligator's attack was swift, but merciless. It didn't just bite its prey, It dragged it underwater and drowned it before devouring it. Piece by piece. The death roll, a signature move of the species, allowed it to tear through flesh with terrifying efficiency. Over the years, many unsuspecting victims had fallen prey to this technique. In May 2018, a woman named Shizuka Matsuki was walking her dogs near a Florida lake when she was attacked and killed by an alligator. Her remains were later found inside the predator's stomach. Even large animals weren't safe. Cattle and even black bears had been documented falling victim to alligator ambushes in swampy areas. And now, beneath the murky waters of the Everglades, a monstrous reptile lay in wait. Its next victim was dangerously close. The swamp was silent, too silent. A suffocating stillness hung over the murky water, broken only by the occasional chirp of crickets and the distant rustling of birds settling in for the night. Luna had no idea that she had already been marked as prey. Without warning, the still water erupted. In a single, terrifying motion, the alligator lunged from beneath the surface, its jaws snapping shut with an explosive burst of power. The force sent a spray of water high into the air, momentarily distorting the landscape in a chaotic blur. Luna had barely registered the movement before she felt teeth clamp down on her hind leg. The pain was white hot, a searing bolt that shot through her entire body. Instinct took over. She lashed out with desperate ferocity, twisting, clawing, fighting to break free. Her sharp claws raked across the thick, armored hide, but they barely left a mark. The alligator did what it did best. It pulled with terrifying strength. It dragged Luna toward the water, its massive tail thrashing as it secured its hold. The bobcat let out a piercing cry, a mixture of rage and desperation, as she dug her claws deep into the muddy bank, trying to stop herself from being pulled under. But the alligator was too strong. Inch by inch, she slid closer to the black abyss of the swamp. The wet soil beneath her paws crumbled, offering no support. Her front legs thrashed, her claws tearing at the earth, but nothing stopped the inevitable. One more pull, and she would be gone. But help was coming. A mile away, a rescue team from the Everglades Wildlife Protection Unit was on patrol. Among them was Jake Harrison, a seasoned wildlife rescuer, and his loyal German shepherd, Max. The dog had been trained for years to detect distressed animals, and tonight his ears pricked up at Luna's desperate cry. Max let out a sharp bark, muscles tensing as he recognized the sound of an animal in danger. Jake immediately knew something was wrong. Without hesitation, he signaled to his team. "Something's out there," he said, gripping his flashlight. "Let's move." As the truck sped toward the source of the noise, the radio crackled to life. "Possible animal distress near the South Marsh. Be advised, this area is alligator territory." Jake's jaw tightened. He already knew that, and if they didn't get there fast, it might be too late. In the next few minutes, life and death would hang in the balance. Everglades National Park, March 12, 2023, 6:50 p.m. The truck skidded to a stop near the marsh. Jake jumped out first, his boots sinking slightly into the damp soil as he grabbed his flashlight. Max was already ahead. Ears pricked forward, nose twitching as he locked on to the scene of the attack. The dog's instincts were razor sharp. He knew exactly where the danger was. "Over there!" Jake called, pointing toward the water's edge. The dim light of dusk barely illuminated the scene, but what they saw made his stomach drop. Luna was halfway submerged, her claws still desperately clinging to the muddy bank. The alligator's jaws were locked around her hind leg, pulling her deeper into the swamp. The battle had already begun. Now it was a race against time. Jake's mind raced. They needed to act fast. The longer Luna stayed in the water, the less chance she had of surviving. He turned to his teammates. "Tom, hit it with the spotlight. Mariah, be ready with the snare pole. I'll go in." "Jake, that thing will kill you," Maria snapped, but Jake was already moving. Tom flicked on a powerful floodlight, illuminating the beast in full. The alligator's cold, reptilian eyes gleamed in the artificial light. Its body tensed with power as it braced for another death roll. The predator wasn't letting go. Max joins the fight. As Jake waded closer, Max sprang into action. The German Shepherd lunged at the alligator's face, barking ferociously, his deep growls echoing across the swamp. The alligator hesitated. That was the opening Jake needed. With all the strength he had, Jake grabbed Luna's front legs and pulled. The Bobcat, sensing help, dug her claws deeper into the mud, using whatever strength she had left. The rescue had begun, but so had the real battle. The alligator wasn't giving up, and now it was angry. With a sudden burst of rage, the alligator whipped its tail. The sheer force sent Jake staggering back, his grip momentarily slipping. Then, in one terrifying motion, it lunged, this time at Jake. Maria reacts instantly. With precise aim, she snapped the snare pole around the alligator's massive jaws, pulling tight. The beast thrashed wildly, but the snare held, barely. "Tom, now!" Tom rushed forward, swinging a heavy catch pole toward the alligator's snout. The blow wasn't enough to hurt it, but it was enough to shock it. That split-second hesitation was all Jake needed. With one final heave, he yanked Luna out of the alligator's grip. The Bobcat let out a rasping cry as she collapsed onto the muddy shore, alive, but barely. But Jake wasn't as lucky. The alligator lunged again. This time its jaws caught Jake's arm. A sharp, searing pain exploded in his left arm as its teeth sank in. With a final, desperate kick, Jake wrenched himself free, tumbling backward onto solid ground. The alligator, stunned and momentarily disoriented, slipped back into the swamp. The fight was over. Jake lay there, his left arm bleeding, his breath ragged. But as he looked at Luna, alive beside him, he knew it had been worth it. Everglades Wildlife Rescue Center, March 12, 2023, 7:30 p.m. The emergency lights of the rescue truck flashed through the darkening swamp as it sped down the dirt road. Inside, Jake sat slumped against the seat, his left arm wrapped in a hastily applied bandage. The pain pulsed in sharp waves, but his eyes weren't on himself. They were on Luna. The Bobcat lay still in the crate beside him. She was breathing, but barely. Max, the German Shepherd, stayed close to Jake's side. His eyes were full of concern, his head resting on Jake's lap, offering silent comfort as the truck bounced over the uneven terrain. Jake kept whispering to Max, as if trying to reassure himself more than the dog. If they didn't make it in time, all of this would have been for nothing. As soon as the truck skidded to a stop, a team of veterinarians rushed out, wheeling a gurney toward Jake. "We need to get him stitched up. Stat!" one of them shouted. But Jake waved them off. "Not me. Luna first." Maria and Tom carefully lifted the crate, bringing the injured Bobcat inside. Max whimpered beside Jake, his ears pressed flat with worry. "She's in bad shape," Tom muttered, "but she's a fighter." As the veterinarians examined Luna, a new problem arose. "Her breathing is erratic," Dr. Emily Carter said, frowning as she checked Luna's vitals. "And her abdomen." She froze. Then her eyes widened. "She's in labor." Luna had survived the alligator attack, but could she survive this? For the next 4 hours, the rescue center turned into a battlefield of focus, sweat, and anxiety. Dr. Carter and her team worked tirelessly, monitoring Luna's contractions, administering fluids, and ensuring she remained stable. Outside, Jake, Maria, and Tom paced the hallways. Even Max sat still, ears twitching, sensing the tension. Every now and then, they could hear Luna's low, exhausted growl from within the room. Jake's heart raced every time. He kept telling himself it was only a matter of time, but each minute felt like an eternity. Then, finally, the silence broke. A sharp, tiny cry echoed from inside the room, then another, and another, 4 in total. Dr. Carter emerged, exhausted but smiling. "She did it," she said. 4 healthy cubs." Jake, who had been pacing outside, exhaled sharply, his entire body slumping with relief. Tom clapped him on the back. Maria wiped at her eyes. Even Max let out a soft huff, as if understanding that the worst was over. In the midst of the chaos, Luna had brought life into the world. The room was filled with a sense of awe and triumph. Against all odds, Luna had not just survived, she had created life. Everglades Wildlife Rescue Center, March 13th, 2023, 8 a.m. Sunlight streamed through the rescue center's windows, painting the sterile white walls with soft gold. But inside the intensive care unit, the air was heavy with tension. Luna lay motionless on the examination table, her breathing shallow, her fur damp with sweat. Dr. Emily Carter ran a thermometer along her side, frowning deeply at the numbers flashing on the screen. 104 degrees, she muttered. "She's burning up." Maria's face tightened. "The infection's worse than we thought." Luna had survived the alligator. But could she survive this battle? The veterinary team worked tirelessly, administering antibiotics, fluids, and cooling pads to bring Luna's fever down. But the infection had taken hold. Her body, already weak from blood loss, was barely fighting back. Outside, Jake sat in his hospital bed, his left arm wrapped in thick bandages. He had undergone emergency surgery to repair a severed artery and torn muscle. The doctors had assured him he would recover, but right now, he didn't care about himself. He only cared about Luna. "How is she?" he asked Maria, who had come to check on him. Maria hesitated, then shook her head. "Not good." Jake exhaled sharply, frustration flickering in his eyes. He had risked his life for her. He wasn't about to lose her now. The next 48 hours would decide everything. While Luna fought for her life, her 4 Bobcat cubs had been placed in an incubator. Without their mother's warmth, they needed constant monitoring. Tom and Maria took turns bottle feeding them, ensuring they got the nutrients they needed. Max, the German Shepherd, stayed close to the incubator, watching the tiny creatures with an unusual gentleness. "I think he's adopted them," Tom joked, rubbing Max's head. But even as the Bobcat cubs grew stronger, their mother remained on the edge of life and death. And then, after 7 long days, everything changed. On the 7th night, as the team gathered around Luna's enclosure, her breathing steadied. The fever had finally broken. Dr. Carter checked her vitals, then let out a long breath. She's past the worst. Jake, still in a sling, leaned against the doorway, exhaustion and relief washing over him. Maria smiled, nudging Tom. I think we should reunite her with the cubs. The moment the tiny bobcats were placed beside their mother, Luna stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, and for the first time in days, she saw her babies. A weak, raspy purr escaped her throat as she gently nudged them closer. For the first time in days, the rescue center wasn't filled with fear. It was filled with hope. Everglades Wildlife Rescue Center, April 12th, 2:23, 9:00 a.m. The morning sun spilled golden light across the rescue center's outdoor enclosures. A month had passed since that fateful night, and the once fragile bobcat family was now thriving. Luna had regained her strength. Her fur had regained its healthy sheen. Her muscles strong once more. She moved with grace, no longer the wounded animal they had pulled from the swamp. Her 4 cubs, now energetic and playful, pounced on each other in the soft grass, their tiny bodies rolling in playful combat. But no matter how comfortable they had become here, this was never meant to be their home. Jake stood at the edge of the enclosure, his left arm still stiff but healing well. The bite from the alligator had left an unmistakable scar, but the pain had long faded. Maria approached him, watching Luna groom one of her cubs. They're ready, she said softly. Jake nodded, his gaze lingering on Luna. I know, but knowing it didn't make it any easier. Releasing them meant saying goodbye. It was time to set them free, but that didn't mean it was easy. The team gathered at the release site, a secluded area deep within the Everglades, away from human interference. The enclosure door was carefully opened, and for a moment Luna hesitated. Then, with the silent confidence of a predator, she stepped forward. Her cubs followed cautiously, their tiny paws pressing into the cool earth. She turned her head, her golden eyes locking onto Jake one last time. Jake held his breath. Was she saying goodbye? Or thank you? Then, with a final flick of her tail, she disappeared into the wilderness. And just like that, they were gone. As the last rustle of Luna's movement faded into the distance, Jake looked down at his arm. The scar, a deep crescent, stood as a permanent reminder of that night. The fight, the fear, the sacrifice. But more than that, it was a symbol of everything he and his team stood for, a symbol of their dedication, their willingness to risk everything for creatures that could never say thank you in words, but whose survival was thanks enough. Maria nudged him, breaking his thoughts. Come on, hero. We've got more animals to save. Jake chuckled, giving Max a quick scratch behind the ears before turning back toward the truck. The day was just beginning.